As I stepped into the chamber, the wretched three-headed beast let out a mighty roar and charged for. Bracing myself, I spat and cocked me pistol. Avast, ye fiend, lest she wants to be scuttled and turned into a satchel. I'm gonna be like great-grandpa. The crisp white limestone of Limsa Lominsa shimmered bright in the afternoon sun. A sudden gust wafted the smell of brine high into my nostrils, forcing me to wrinkle my nose. I walked along the cobblestones, watching people as they teleported in and out and gathered around the XIV plaza. Bits of conversation in accents and dialects I'd never heard danced and mingled before drifting away with the ocean breeze. I was feeling a bit like a fish out of water. The last time I visited Limsa Lominsa, I was knee-high on a ladybug. At least, that's what Ma and Great-Grandpa told me. I couldn't remember ever being here. My mind was racing. Great-Grandpa told me all about this shining city built by the sea, how the sea wolves had to set sail on the Galadian to escape a tyrant, and how this crew rescued a group of Ellison explorers who faced shipwreck. The Ellison explorers were so grateful they told the sea wolves about a place they could be safe, a little place now called Lenosha. When the kobolds forced the sea wolves out, they decided to build up out of the ocean, and that's how Limsa Lominsa came to be, a place for folks who belonged to the sea. As I stood in the XIV plaza, I realized I wasn't sure where to begin. I had attempted to help a stranger at the Drowning Wench the day before, but it turned out I'd been taken for a ride. When I brought the supposed illegal plants to the guard, and he told me what it really was, the egg on my face was fried. He laughed heartily, assuring me that Nanaya was just getting my feet wet and didn't mean anything by it. I sighed, shaking my head to remove the memory. I supposed I could try the Drowning Wench once more. After all, it was a hub of activity for adventurers and sea folk alike. That was it. I'd start there and make sure to keep my wits about me, and a close eye on Nanaya. After all, a good adventurer doesn't quit. The Drowning Wench was alive with patrons. Sailors enjoying their time on land. Other adventurers huddled around tables and in corners comparing notes. Later on, the barkeep cast a grin my way that could bring any weary sailor to shore. As I took a glance about the hall, my eyes met those dusky eyes of Nanaya's, and I felt shamefaced all over again. I wanted to turn and pretend I hadn't noticed her, but she beckoned me over. I swallowed hard as I walked to her table. Oh, you've returned. I hope you do not harbor any ill will towards me for my earlier deception. Her eyes danced with mirth as she continued. You see, I believe the most important lesson for a green adventurer to learn is that he should always question the motives of everyone he meets. If I have given offense, allow me to make it up to you with some advice. Tell me, have you visited the eyes outside the Tempest Gate and past Madman Bridge? I eyed her warily, but shook my head. Not yet. I was already questioning her motives for this conversation. The sentries stationed there keep watch over the road, and when trouble arises, they sometimes turn to outside help. you wish to make a name for yourself as a trustworthy adventurer, you should speak with Ankrita at the Eyes and offer your assistance. A name for myself as a trustworthy adventurer was just what I needed. Although doubt lurked in my mind, I decided to give Nanaya its benefit. If anything, it was a chance to explore the world outside Limsa Lominsa, and that in itself was worth it to me. As I turned and walked toward the archway, I felt a sudden rush of excitement. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd be an adventurer. And now, here I was, going on my first real adventure. The excitement boiled over and I kicked my heels, running straight to the balcony. As I reached the edge, I cheered into the brilliant blue of the sky. By the time Farron and I made it to the Eyes and found Ankrita, it was night. As I told her Nanaya's tale, I watched her expression change from confusion to empathy. You say someone told you to come to me for work, lad. I'm afraid you've been had. We're known to hire adventurers, 'tis true, but we always go through the Adventurers Guild. Even if I wanted to assign you duties, Yellow Jacket regulations prohibit me from doing so directly. Now, if you don't mind working in an unofficial capacity, I've a personal request I could make of you. Her voice trailed, but I barely noticed. I couldn't believe it. I'd been had. Again. I couldn't find my words as I struggled to fathom how I could have been so foolish to fall for such a cruel joke not once, but twice. I thanked Ankrita for her time and told her I would gladly help her, but not tonight. Suddenly, I was worn slap out. I barely remember the ride home or how I got into my bed. The next morning, my resolve had returned. I decided that it was best to avoid Nanaya for now. I found myself back in the Aetherite Plaza and was just thinking of where I should try next when the guard, Outskiff, waved me over. Good morning, lad. I was hoping to see you again. By way of thanks for delivering my scattered lavender, I have a nugget of information that may prove useful to you. You see, I was recently approached by an unkempt seafarer, which is not, I admit, particularly unusual for a man in my profession. What was unusual was that he offered a generous sum of gil to be introduced to any adventurers I might know. At the word adventurer, my ears perked up. My experienced sailors are not known to carry such a wealth of coin upon their person, especially with the alehouses of Limsa Lominsa so close at hand. He lowered his voice and leaned in closer. Kidnappings have not been uncommon these past moons. Clearing his throat, he stood straight and gave me a knowing nod. My eyes grew wide. Kidnappings? I mean, I guess what with Limsa Lominsa being a seaport and all, but for what? Ransoms? I suggest you take this information and speak with Glazrael, the guard who stands at the entrance to East Hawker's Alley. It never hurts to show a spirit of cooperation to the authorities, lad. He tossed me a wink and placed his hands on his hips. I stood up straight and gave him a confident nod. Thanks for the tip, sir. I'll let her know. That is disturbing news. Your initiative is appreciated, adventurer. I'll have the captain place the Yellow Jackets on high alert. I nodded and was just about to head on my way when she spoke again. Ah, and while I have your ear, I need you to visit Freedwib and tell her the same thing you told me. You'll find her a bit further down East Hawker's Alley. Freedwib has frequent dealings with adventurers, so any warning you give her should soon spread through the city. Aye, ma'am. I'll go speak with her right away. East Hawker's Alley, the market. After the Aetherite Plaza, this should have been the busiest place. But as I stepped through the large stone archway, I was surprised to see how few others were about. Midway through the alley, I noticed a commanding dark wooden stall with a tall Rogadan woman standing at attention behind it. She was dressed like she could answer any question anyone asked her. That, or she was ready to take your order. A small plaque upon her desk read, "Hello, my name is Freedwib." "Greetings, sir. May I interest you in the services of a retainer?" she asked as I approached. "No, ma'am, not today, thank you." I proceeded to inform her of the suspicious fella wandering around. What's this? Some suspicious seafarer is on the prowl for gullible adventurers? A possible suspect in the recent kidnappings, you think? Well, I'll be sure to pass on that warning to my customers. What with all the merchants and travelers milling through Hawker's Alley, these kinds of unsavory activities can often go unnoticed. In any case, I promised to keep a sharp lookout for anyone being accosted by strange-looking sailors. She gave a warm smile. "Thank you, ma'am. Have a fine day." I returned her smile. I was just thinking about taking a leisurely stroll through the alley when a booming voice called out to me.
"You, sir, adventurer, I have work for you."
I spun around to see another tall, Rogadan man beaming down at me. "Me?" I asked. I felt a small surge of pride at being recognized as an adventurer already.
I would have you pose as a customer and survey the market's current prices."
I could feel the disappointment creeping on my face.
"Surely I did not see you balk at so simple a task. All you need to do is strike up a conversation with the shop owners and glance over their wares. There are 3 merchants that interest me: Iron Thunder, Kyo Ruin, and Shiny Hill. Write down all you see on this price list and hand it to Ben Singh on West Hawker's Alley. He shall reward you for your service."
Well, I couldn't refuse a reward. I forced a smile and said, "Sure thing, sir." And I set off down the alley in search of these merchants. The first merchant went by the name of Iron Thunder. He was tall, dark-skinned, with an intense stare. Yet when he spoke, it was friendly and inviting.
"Well met, lad. Cast your peepers over these beauties. Not a spot of rust to be found. Every piece fresh from the forges of Naldeek and Vimeles."
"Thank you, sir. It's all very beautiful." I wasn't sure what exactly the Rogadan was looking for, but I reckoned it best just to jot down everything I saw. I finished my task quickly and bid Iron Thunder farewell, saying I'd be back later. The next merchant to find was a Kikiran by the name of Kyo Rune. Kikirans are interesting beastmen. Great-grandpa told me they like to join other communities as merchants and are exceptionally good with numbers. So it wasn't a surprise to find one selling their wares in a city so grand as Limsa Lominsa. Kyo Rune, welcome, customer. Kyo Rune loves his lovely trade. Kyo Rune's goods are goodly made. He cheerfully greeted me as I approached. I gave him a warm smile and quickly jotted down what I needed to know. Then I thanked him and moved on to the last merchant on my list. Shiny Hill was the last merchant. He had skin that reminded me of the jade stone my great-grandpa brought back from Ma after one of his long fishing trips.
"A fine evening to you, sir. What can I interest you into?" "Why, you seem interested in most everything, don't you? Is this another one of those investigations? Well, I have nothing to hide."
I gave him an apologetic smile and quickly took down the information. "Thank you, sir. No offense meant, truly." It wasn't hard to find Ben Singh. He was stood squarely at the exit of the alley, hands upon his hips. I doubt any suspicious folk could get past him if they tried.
"You're the one what made a list for Swo's, mate. Let's have it then."
"Aye, sir. Here it is." I handed him the price list.
Nothing wrong with the market, as far as I can tell. You oftentimes get pirates selling stolen goods at cutthroat rates, and that drives the numbers down right across Hawker's Alley. Thanks to these reports, though, we can tell at a glance when shady dealings are taking place. Good work, lad.
He gave me a small bag with some gill in it. Well, it wasn't the most exciting task, but Great-Grandpa always said that helping others isn't always pretty. I decided to take myself outside the alley and back to the Etherite Plaza to see if I couldn't find someone who was looking for more help. As I stepped out into the plaza, a young Mikote woman called out to me. "Excuse me, sir, but might you have a moment or two to spare? You seem the type who enjoys being accosted for menial tasks, and I require someone to make a delivery to the dutiful sisters of the Edelweiss." At her first remark, I was starting to get worried that people would see me as less of an adventurer and more of a gopher, but I decided not to think about it too much. Instead, I asked about the dutiful sisters. I wouldn't be surprised if you hadn't heard of them. The sisters prefer not to advertise their presence here in Limsa Lominsa. They do, however, provide a rather unique service of which the berrrlynn consortium has recently been the beneficiary. I would have you deliver this package to their doorman Lonewood, along with our profuse gratitude. You'll find the dutiful sisters, convent down near Fisherman's Bottom. Pray deliver the package to the doorman along with the sincere gratitude of the berrrlynn consortium. I was starting to get hungry, so I decided to stop to get some food with my hard-earned coin before completing this delivery. By the time I was on my way to the convent, night had fallen over Limsa Lominsa. There were a few people still out, a man who appeared to be making a delivery of his own, and a small family looking out over the shipyard. It made me wonder what Ma might be doing right now. if she was looking out over the water, wondering how my journey was going. "Don't worry, Ma. I'll be writing a letter soon," I said aloud as I continued my way over the winding docks to the front door of the Dutiful Sisters convent. The convent was small and unassuming, with a strong-looking man standing outside. He had a shock of yellow hair that stood out on his head and kind of reminded me of Farron by Chocobo.
Aye, this is the Dutiful Sisters of the Edelweiss, a house of deep reflection and meditation. So unless ye proper business with us, ye can kindly bugger off.
"Oh no, sir. I don't mean to disturb them. I was asked to deliver a package from the berrrlynn Consortium." I spoke pleasantly, doing my best to sound reassuring, and handed him the package.
What's this then? A parcel from the berrrlynn Consortium, eh? Let's have a peek inside.
As he peeked inside the box, he looked like a boy on his name day.
Ooh, walnut bread and ginger cookies, and a few of them Bismarck finger sandwiches too. Them consortium calls know the right way to show appreciation. Some of them sisters have unholy appetites, so I'd best save a few bites for myself before I take this inside.
Suddenly he stopped and looked at me.
You let Janasham know we're always here should her boss have need of us again.
"Aye, sir, I will. Good night." I turned on my heel and ran back to report to the Makote girl. I was surprised to find her still standing in the plaza. "You've delivered the package as requested. Very good. I shall pass on the sister's sentiments to my superior." Before I left, I had to ask, "These dutiful sisters, what exactly do they do? What manner of services do the dutiful sisters provide?" She looked at me with a knowing grin. "Continue your stay in Limsa Lominsa, and you'll likely find out soon enough. In fact, if you're confident in your abilities and comfortable with the unconventional, you might wish to approach them yourself." I felt like an Opo trying to do math. I hadn't the foggiest what she was talking about, but I reckon I will find out someday what the dutiful sisters are really up to. I had a late start today. I ended up spending some time with Farron, and the morning just slipped on by. Once I got into the plaza, I noticed a poor goblin with a distressed look on his face. I reckon that'd be a good place to start as any. Sweetnix is a beauteous copy and crafty smart trade maker. Sweetnix makes busy deal with uplanders. Need to deliver letter to Gate of Milvan, but Sweetnix has shiver shakes. Uplander walk to Gate of Milvan for Sweetnix. Uplander delivers letter to Tax Lady Patasha. I'd only ever met one goblin before. He was a traveling merchant that would come to our farm with all sorts of things. We never bought anything from him, despite how hard he tried. I always thought their gobby speak was so fun. "I'll gladly do that for you, Mr. Sweetnix." I gave a reassuring nod. "I'll be back in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail." I tucked the letter in my bag and was off to the Gate of Milvan. The scent of old wood and varnish washed over me as I entered the doors to the Gate of Milvan. It was all business in there. As I approached the counter, Patasha was muttering to herself, "Where is Sweetnix with those import records? Without the proper documentation, I am afraid we shall have to expel him from the city." "Pardon me, ma'am." I handed over the letter from Sweetnix. The scholarly Makote silently studied it for a moment before saying, "Why, these are Sweetnix's records. Glad I am to see they were submitted in time. Honestly, you would think that Goblin would have lost his fear of our offices by now. Every month he is to submit these papers, and every month his tardiness forces me to consider his removal, as long as one follows proper procedure. Limsa Lominsa is quite welcoming of foreign traders. Pray convey these words to Sweetnix. Perhaps it will aid in soothing the poor goblin's fears." "Sure thing, ma'am." I smiled politely before exiting and making my way back to the plaza. "Uplander delivered letter to Gate of Milvan? Uplander has wide heart and swift legs. Tax Lady Patasha has kind words for Sweetnix. Sweetnix has outroar of joy for Tax Lady Patasha. Sweetnix is happy copy, gives Uplander jingly shine." I waved goodbye to Sweetnix and decided to take a stroll down to the Fisherman's Guild. Being in a city I'd heard Great Grandpa talk so much about made me miss him more than ever. Since he was a fisherman, I reckon going down there would make me feel closer. Maybe I could pick up a rod while I was there too. As I stepped through the entryway, my eyes fell upon a Lalafell with a sun hat on. She looked to be in charge, so I reckoned she'd be the one to talk to about getting a pole. Howdy, ma'am. The calamity really knocked the wind out the fishing industry's sails, but fisher folk are starting to return to the seas once more. It's past time I did the same. I was surprised by her sudden openness, but listened earnestly. But before I can put out to sea again, I need to have a new boat built. Our guild has always commissioned a Deacon Van Mellies for its crafts, but they are beastly busy these days. If you want for something to do, mayhap you could run over to Armorer's Guild and consult with Forge Master Hananza in my stead. I would know how long we might expect to have to wait. I was more than willing to help a fellow fisher folk, as I was sure it must have been a struggle to have lost her boat. Hananza was a Mikote that cut a striking silhouette. She was dressed to the toes in all black with dark wraparound glasses to match. The only bit of color on her was the cerulean blue scarf about her neck. It made her look sharp, as Ma would say. She listened intently as I explained Sissipu's plight, but shook her head. A new boat for the Fisherman's Guild? I'm afraid now isn't the best time. You see, we have recently taken on a commission for a galleon. This task alone has all our heads full. But look, I will see what I can do. The Fisherman's Guild has long been one of our best clients, and I would be loath to disappoint Sissipu. It may yet take a while, but I shall endeavor to have our boat ready in a timely fashion. Well, I hoped Sissipu would take this well. I gave Hananza a nod and thanked her for her time. She gave me a curious look and caught me before I could turn to go. Are you in need of some trifling task to pass the time? Then I have just the job for you. Baderon is offering a reward to any adventurer who slays at least 5 wharf rats. There's no shortage of the pest lurking outside the Tempest Gate, so you should hurry and take advantage of this opportunity. Why, thank you, ma'am. I'll see what I can do. Rat extermination was something we had to do regularly on the farm. It wasn't the prettiest job, but if we wanted to have crops to sell, we had to do it. Great-grandpa did it when I was younger, and then he showed me how to do it. He told me it was our job, and Ma should never have to do such a task. Although I know she was faster and mightier at catching rats than I ever could be. Baron and I made quick work of the rats, and in good time, too. As I walked through the archway of the Drowned Wench, the first drops of rain began to fall. It was a relief to see Baderon standing behind the bar, like a beam of light through the storm. Howdy, Baderon. I climbed onto one of the stools. I heard you needed help with some extermination. Ah, so you slew a few rats. Good on you, lad. The joyous barkeep barked a laugh as he placed a warm beverage on the table in front of me. This bloke comes through the other day and plops this huge sack the size of a bleeding gooboo on the counter, saying any man what slays rats can have something from within. When I inquires as to why, all he says is the damn noise they make when scurrying about is driving him insane. You ask me, though, he was already a bit touched. Something tells me the poor lad'll never find peace. We sat exchanging laughs and conversation as I sipped my drink. The warm, mulled spices brought an instant warmth to my humors. Baderon was an excellent storyteller. It reminded me of my great-grandpa. As I listened to his booming voice carrying far over the wench, I wondered if this is what Great-Grandpa meant when he said he'd never met a stranger. I wasn't sure if I had what it took to be the grand adventurer that my Great-Grandpa was, but I think I was starting to see why he liked it so much. Already in a few short days, I'd helped a mess of folks with simple tasks, and heard stories I never dreamed I would. As I polished off my drink, I realized how tired I was. The day had long since ended, and the rain was not letting up anytime soon. It was time to go. I bid Baderon a good night and slipped a few coins neath my empty glass. He'd refused to take my gill when I tried to pay, but I wasn't about to leave him without. As I made my way to the exit, Stodojby, one of the servant girls, beckoned to me. Yes, ma'am? I looked up to her quizzically. These days, poor Baderon's so busy looking after others, he hasn't been able to look after himself. He deserves something for his efforts. I followed her gaze toward Baderon. where he was already busy chatting to two burly types at the bar. Whenever he's in his cups and starts speaking of the old days, he never fails to mention Aurelii. Seems he and his mates used to eat the creatures on occasion. It's obvious he still has fond memories of that life, so I'm thinking a few Aurelii umbrellas might be something he'd appreciate. Could you help me by procuring 4 of them? If you're willing to help, speak with Clyndrago by the off castle. She knows where various wild beasts congregate. Aurelii? I believe Great-Grandpa mentioned the name before. Yet he never said anything about eating them. Worry not, ma'am. I'll make sure to find some for you. I'll set out first thing in the morning to find them. She thanked me and I went out into the rain. Another successful day of adventuring in the books. And I already got a head start on tomorrow. Berrrlynn actually likes Aurelii umbrellas. Gods, I'd never even considered trying to eat one of those foul things. Clyndrago's reaction surprised me. I wasn't sure what the things looked like, but by the sounds of it, you'd have to be pretty desperate to eat them, I reckon. Nevertheless, if it's Aurelii you seek, you ought to find plenty by the river just past the Tempest Gate and to the east. Thank you, ma'am. Much obliged. It was time for another adventure with Farron. It didn't take long for us to find them. The soft, ethereal glow they gave off could be seen from at least a mile away. We made quick work of the hunt and were soon walking through the drowning wench with our spoils. Berrrlynn was his usual cheery self as I approached the bar. "So Joby said an adventurer might be dropping by to deliver something special. That you, lad?" "Aye, 'tis." I proudly handed over the satchel with the Aurelii umbrella inside. I watched intently as Berrrlynn opened the bag. His expression was strange. A mixture of anguish and mirth, as if he didn't quite know what he should be feeling. He gave me a weak smile.
Ah, Els, lad, you didn't have to go to all this trouble.
His face cracked into a wide grin and he threw his head back, dropping the satchel on the bar.
This goddamn smell. I've hated Aurelii umbrellas since I was a sellsword. 'Tis only the nastiest shite I ever put in me mouth. We tried sprinkling it with salt and cooking it over a campfire, but 'twas little better than chewing on driftwood. Try it for yourself, lad. You'll see what I mean.
He was near tears. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing along with him. When I entered Mielvan's Gate later that day, it was just as busy as it had been the first time I'd been there. Patasia had her head buried in her books as I approached her counter. "Pardon me, ma'am, you called for me?" Patasia raised her eyes from her book and gave me a hard look, studying my face as if she did not recognize me. "Oh." Her expression relaxed. "Yes. Here at Mielvan's Gate, we inspect all the goods that are imported into Limsa Lominsa and collect duty as the law requires. Some merchants, however, seek to evade this obligation, and we must chase them down. I would be grateful if you could deliver these 2 ledgers, one to a man named Sundhamel, whom you will find at the Octant, and the other to a woman named Letitia, who works at the Bismarck." She promptly shoved the ledgers my way. "If you are uncertain as to the whereabouts of the Bismarck, ask Sundhamel when you meet him, and he will point you in the right direction. Don't worry, ma'am. I'll see these letters are delivered safely." I gave her a final reassuring smile and left on my way. Sundhamel was a stern-looking Rogadan that I would hate to get to know the wrong side of.
A ledger from Mielvan's Gate, you say? Yet more outstanding duty payments. When will those merchants ever learn? Very well. If I catch sight of any offenders, I shall drag them to the gate, kicking and screaming if needs be.
"Thank you kindly, sir. I have one more ledger what needs go to the Bismarck.
One more ledger bound to the Bismarck, you say? Follow this path to the upper decks and you'll find the place.
I nodded and thanked Sundheimer one more time. As I began to head in the direction of the Bismarck, I was smacked right in the face by the most delicious food smells I'd smelt in a while. My mouth was watering before I even walked through the door. I wondered if Great-Grandpa had ever eaten there. Letitia was a pretty gal with a sweet voice and kind demeanor, though I had a sneaking suspicion she could roll with the toughest of them if she had to. Tax evaders among our patrons, you say? Goodness me. I dare say this may well put an end to their appetite, but this is in the best interests of the city-state. If any of the merchants named in this ledger come to dine with us, I shall see that Mealvan's Gate is notified without delay. Thank you kindly, ma'am. Before I left, I took a small walk around the kitchen. Ma, you sure would be impressed. They have some of the biggest stoves I've ever seen. But boy, it was hot in there. I wiped the sweat from my brow and stepped out into the cool night air. There was one more place I wanted to visit before I turned in. The Missing Member is a tavern run by the Sanguine Sirens, an all-female pirate crew. The Sirens are one of the 3 reigning pirate crews in Limsa Lominsa, known for their raids on coastal ships. Now, though, it seems they spend their days running the tavern. Any road, I heard good things about its food and drinks, so I decided to give it a visit. As I approached the Missing Member, a rough-looking Mikote gal called out, "If you're looking for a place to wet your whistle, scrag, I'd advise you turn tail and run. Captain Rousen's in no mood to be entertaining customers this eve, and even when she is, she ain't particularly good at it." I could feel the sweat prickling on my neck with her words. I wasn't keen on making any pirate angry tonight. I guess I could come back later. I opened my mouth to say I'd be leaving when she continued. Though, maybe dealing with the customers the sort of shite what might shake her from her doldrums. But if you mean to venture inside the Missing Member, ye best remember to pay your proper respects to the captain, lest ye ain't afraid of going missing. Kneeling afore her would be a good start. I swallowed and gave a nod. I guess it was worth a shot. Like Great-Grandpa always said, help people, even if you don't think you're able to. I squared my shoulders, took a deep breath, and walked over the bridge into the Missing Member. 'Twas a round room with a few mostly empty tables. There, in the center of the room, sat who I could only assume was the captain herself. She was beautiful, that was true, but the look in her eyes was enough to kill a man dead. I gulped as those piercing eyes locked onto me. "The hell's ye want, Drylander?" Her voice was sharp and rough. "We're closed. If you don't want me sirens to toss ye out on your arse, show some respect and kneel, scrag." On command, I dropped to my knee before her. My heart was thundering in my ears and I was sure I was going to die. I closed my eyes and said a prayer to Ocean. "Oh, so he knows his place. Good. If only the Krakens had the same sense of propriety. Bastards keep seizing every Garlean ship before we can take a crack at 'em. It's a sorry state of affairs when your crew's reduced to preying on the leavings of that mangy bunch of man-boys. Me younger self would be right disappointed to see how far we've fallen." Her tone grew soft. I looked up to see a misty, faraway look in her eyes. She quickly straightened up and snapped. "You see, I'm wallowing in self-pity, scrag. You couldn't possibly understand how disappointed I am in myself." Oh, but I sure could. There were plenty of times on the farm I failed. Trying to protect our fields, trying to provide for Ma. I was never good at things the way she and Great-Grandpa was. That's why I wanted to become an adventurer, to learn how to be as strong and smart as Great-Grandpa. Not for nothing, Captain, but I've been plenty disappointed in myself lately. I've never really been good at anything. I wanted to become an adventurer to prove to myself I got guts. Might not know how you're feeling, but I know plenty about being disappointed in myself. The captain gave pause, studying me quietly for a moment. "Humph. So you do know something on me, Payne. But your sympathy ain't worth more than a pint of piss. It's well and good we got the Admiral's permission to capture Garlean ships, but what's the use if you keep on getting beat to your prey?" she shouted, slamming her fist on the table. A mug danced dangerously close to the edge. "We built our reputation reaving right off the coast of Vilbrand.
not sailing a dozen malms into the bleeding sea. The few Imperial dogs found in Lominsan territory get snatched by krakens in open waters. I rallied me crew's spirits when I said we were reviving the old ways, but after all our struggles, they seem resigned to letting those bastards have all the fun. There's got to be a way to rally me Sirens' spirits again. I never thought pirates could get so upset over their reputation. In the old stories Great-Grandpa told me, the pirates were always reckless as all get out. I guess even pirates have bad days. "You can do it!" I yelled, throwing my fist in the air. The captain glared at me and I recoiled. "Huh? You trying to make light of me, Dilemma? Don't push your luck, Scrag, or I'll gut you with a hook like a regular pirate." Wait, that's it! We're pirates, goddamn, so we should think like pirates. Bugger keeping limits and water safe. We'll raid supply shipments to the Garlean outposts along the coast of Alderaan. Ha 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 ha. It's so bleeding simple. I don't know why I didn't think of this before. Thank you for your unintended inspiration, Scrag. To think I almost had you fed to the sharks. The captain immediately began chatting with the other folks around her. I decided it was time to take my leave. The touch of the cool sea air on my cheeks made me realize how hot I'd gotten. As I approached the end of the bridge, the gruff-looking Mikote stopped me. "I gather your meeting with the captain went well." I could hear her cackling all the way out here. "Yeah," I chuckled. "I suppose it did." "Well, whatever you did, thank you for doing it. Last thing we needed was her going on another rampage, ruining deck swabs and leaving us with less meat. Tain't easy playing by the Admiral's rules, but if anyone can find a way, Captain Rawson can." Before I left, she gave me a small coin purse. "For your troubles." I was still reeling from the experience as I made my way to the plaza. All the excitement had me war slap out, and something about today made me want to write a letter to Ma, too. The next morning, I started out early. After eating a delicious breakfast at the Bismarck, I reckoned I'd go around to explore the rest of the city. As I was leaving, a young Mikote in an apron called to me. "Beg your pardons, good sir, but you are an adventurer, are you not?" I couldn't help but grin and nod. "Well, ma'am, I reckon I am. How can I be of help?" She gave me a small smile, but her brows were stitched in worry. "I realize this is sudden, but we urgently need help restocking our larders. We are in the midst of preparing a full-course meal for soon-arriving guests, but I fear we are short on fresh lamb for the main course. I would be grateful if you could procure 4 slices for us. I dare say it would be quickest to obtain these directly from the source. Wild lambs. In case you are unfamiliar with the creatures, I suggest you speak with Applefar, a sentry stationed in Bulwark Hall, just below the Drowning Wench." "Sure thing, ma'am. Worry not. You will be feasting on lamb in no time." I wasn't sure what to expect as I'd never had to slay a lamb before, so I decided speaking with this Applefar fellow would be a good idea as any. I found him right where the gal said he'd be. "The Bismarck wants fresh lamb, does it? Gods, I could do with a slice myself, fresh off the grill and dripping in its own juices." Ablefar's eyes got a faraway look, and I swear he was drooling. "Sorry, friend, I haven't had a single bite to eat since my shift began. Any road, you can get lamb easily enough by hunting the lambs that graze outside the city. Go through the Zephyr Gate and follow the path east and south for a bit. You'll run into the fluffy and tasty critters before long." As I left, I could have swore I heard Applefar slurping again. I found the fluffy lambs where he said they'd be. Honestly, I was a bit sorry to have to hurt them. They were awfully cute, but I knew as an adventurer I'd have to do things I didn't always like to do. I wondered absently as I sliced the lamb if Great-Grandpa ever had to do such tasks. After the lamb was cut and wrapped tight in my bag, I hurried back to deliver it to the maiden. "Have you had any luck obtaining the fresh lamb? Please hurry. The guests are arriving any moment now." "Right here, ma'am." I handed over the parcel. Her face lit up with delight as she inspected the package, and she beamed down at me. 4 slices of fresh lamb, and right in the nick of time. Thank you ever so much." She dug a small coin purse out of a pocket in her apron and handed it to me before continuing. "'Tis times like this I feel fulfilled in my role. I used to be a chef myself, you see, but my skills weren't quite up to par. So when the Bismarck expanded operations, I asked to be made its provisioner instead. This way I can still be a part of the business in spite of my shortcomings.
Well, I think you're doing a fine job, ma'am. If you ever needed an adventurer's help again, I'd be more than happy to help you. We exchanged farewells and I watched as she hurried deep into the kitchen. I was about to depart when Letitia caught up to me and asked me to come speak with her. It felt good to be making a name for myself slowly among the people of Limsa Lominsa. How horrible it would have been if I let Nanaya deter me on my first day here. I approached Letitia to find her with a look of concern on her face. How can I be of service, ma'am? We spare no effort to ensure that all our patrons enjoy the finest food and hospitality. And so it is doubly hurtful when someone decides to leave without settling the bill. Of course, ma'am, who would do such a thing? Naria Bellico, a first-time patron, did just that. Rasushmo is the one who lovingly prepared the man's meal. She is quite upset by the whole affair and has taken it upon herself to draw an illustration of the offender. Might I trouble you to deliver to the Yellow Jackets on our behalf? Rasushmo should be done adding the final touches by now. Of course, ma'am. Leave it to me. Bismarck and Rasushmo do not deserve to be insulted, so I bowed and turned on my heel to locate Rasushmo. I found her in a corner on the upper level stacking plates. I could almost see the steam pouring from her pointy ears. Pardon me, ma'am. I'm here to take your drawing to the Yellow Jackets. She stopped slamming plates and shoved her hand deep in her apron pocket. I poured my heart and soul into that grilled dodo. If I ever get my hands on the scoundrel, I'll grind his bones to make my bread. Here it is, my rendition of the criminal. Please deliver it to Godebert at the Coral Tower. He will know what to do. Before I could say a word, she was back to slamming the stacked plates and muttering angrily to herself. As I walked, I decided to take a look at the picture so I could keep an eye out, too. It was a shakily drawn oblong shape with a few small squares and circles. I suspected those were the nose and eyes, but it was honestly hard to tell. I just hoped her cooking was better than her artwork. Milka at the Bismarck, and you have an artist's rendition of the man? I do. Here, I gave him a small smile as I handed him the portrait. The look on his face said it all. What in the seven hells is this supposed to be? It looks more like the prow of a ship than a man's face. I stifled a laugh as he let out a long sigh. Look, we would like nothing more than to bring the offender to justice. 'Tis our duty, after all. However, we will need a little bit more to go on than this piece of art. It would be easiest for all involved if Rasushmo were to come here and answer some questions. Please relay to her as much. So you've spoken with Godebert. Ha 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 ha. Within the bell, the Yellow Jackets will have that swindling scoundrel locked in a dungeon cell, and then I'll take my filleting knife and... Damn, wait! Mr. Godebert says he wants you to come to Coral Tower for questioning. I had to stop her. She'd gone plumb crazy. Huh? Godebert wants me to go to the Coral Tower for questioning. But what more information does he want that my drawing doesn't already provide? Isn't a picture supposed to paint 1,000 words? I'm mighty sorry, ma'am. I think he's just being thorough. She let out a sigh, and I bid her goodbye. After my latest delivery, I realized I'd acquired quite a bit of gil. I hadn't yet visited the Seventh Sage, so I reckoned that'd be a good place to start. The moment those wooden doors swung open, I was wrapped in an aromatic hug. A mix of sweet and savory touched my nose and my mouth started watering. It made me think of the way moss melt after spending hours in the kitchen, and I had to swallow down a lump in my throat at the thought. From the floor above, I could hear some hushed voices. I followed these voices to the upper foyer, only to find that this is where the spice shop was located. It was quaint, with barrels taller than me filled to the brim with bright-colored spices. Ye want for coin, venturer? How'd ye fancy working for the Kraken's Arms, one of the greatest pirating crews in Limsa? I looked to see a man standing in the corner, arms folded over his chest. Curious, I walked over to him. If you're interested, take yourself up these here steps to the balcony above and talk to Carvelin, our captain. Do right by him, and he'll do right by ye. My stomach was already jumbling. My last interaction with pirates flashed before my eyes. Swallowing hard, I nodded and thanked him and made a slow ascent. As I stepped out on the upper deck, I was met by a cool rain. The group of men who were there did not seem to be bothered by it much, though. I reckon being a pirate, you get plenty wet while out to sea. I didn't have to look far to discover who Captain Carvalane was. There, standing directly across from the tops of the stairs, stood a tall, lanky Elizin. His skin was dark and made me think of the trees back home, yet his hair was fiery as a blazing sunset.
Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Seventh Sage, purveyors of the finest spices from the East. All our products are guaranteed obtained through completely legal means.
His voice was deep and regal sounding. He didn't speak like the other pirates I'd met. I cleared my throat and shook my head. No, sir. Pardon, but I was told you were on the lookout for a man to do a job for you. Well, I am glad to inform you that you found your man. Carvalane raised a brow.
Oh, you do not seek spices but employment. Well then, let us speak of how you might be of service to our organization. Our Misery returned from her latest voyage bearing exotic spices never before seen in Eorzea. I have prepared 2 samplers, each of which I would have you deliver to certain individuals. The first is for Grenade, whom you will find at the Coral Tower. The second is for Master Linsgath, the head chef of the Bismarck, and do make certain the right person gets the right set. Go now, and return here once you have accomplished the task.
Not to worry, Captain. I shall be prompt. I gave a quick bow and was off faster than a hungry chocobo. As I made my way to the Coral Tower, I examined the packages in my hand. I wondered what kind of exotic spices were within, and if I might be able to buy some for Ma once I returned. Grenade looked up from over her desk as I walked through the entryway. Welcome to the headquarters of the Yellow Jackets, the keepers of the peace in Limsa Lominsa. Is there aught I can assist you with? Howdy, ma'am. I've been sent here to deliver a sample of spice courtesy of the Seventh Sage. A sample of spice courtesy of the Seventh Sage, you say? There's no mistake this is fire sand, and the kind used by the Guardians besides. Quite intriguing. Very well, we will consider placing an order. Fire sand? I looked at her quizzically. Is that something you cook with? Oh, you thought you had brought me spice. I see you are not familiar with Carvalanisms. For the sake of convenience, he uses the word spice to refer to literally anything he has procured on the high seas. Now that sent my mind to spinning. I stared down at the other package in my hand, wondering what sort of spice it might contain. Grenade smiled kindly and continued, "Lest you worry, the man isn't engaged in any activity that is considered piracy. Far from it. Think of him as a trader, a heavily armed one, who represents Lominsan interests in eastern lands." Ah, I see. That's good then. Thank you for your time, ma'am. I best be on my way. I gave her a quick bow and was off to the next location. Linsgath was all broad shoulders and professionalism in his culinarian hat. I watched with eyes that must have been as big as dinner plates as he took the package and examined it.
A new sample from the Seventh Sage. All right, let's have a whiff of it then. Ain't smelled nothing like it afore. The note has come with it says a root what grows unauthored. Last I heard, authored was under imperial rule. How the 7Ls did Carvalane manage to get hold of this?
He gave me a look and all I could do was shrug.
Any road. I reckon I can cook up something fresh and new with it. Thanks for the delivery, friend.
You're welcome, sir. I was out the door and heading back towards the Seventh Sage in an instant. Authored? I wasn't familiar with the name, but I was fully intrigued. I had to make sure to mark that in my travel log for future exploration. By the time I made it back to the Seventh Sage, the rain had stopped. Yet the captain was still in the same spot that I left him.
Welcome back. It would seem both samples were rather well received. And this is in no small part due to our affable courier. 'Tis unfortunate, but notoriety accumulated over the course of years does not fade overnight. There are many who still are hesitant to do business with savage pirates. Yet the old days of piracy have passed, giving way to a new wave of opportunity. My crew and I have decided to embrace this wave. With the Admiral's blessing, we engage in a form of trade with Garlean ships. Everything we do, you may rest assured, is within the law.
I would reflect on this later, finding it interesting how 2 pirate crews in Limsa Lominsa had taken 2 different approaches to the law. Each found ways to work within its restrictions, pursuing what they loved without overstepping boundaries. Limsa Lominsa was the city built from the sea, and its people were still very much attached to the place from whence it came. As I entered the Aetherite Plaza the next day, Alt's gift told me that Grenade was asking for me. As I made my way to the Coral Tower, I wondered if this could be the moment I had been waiting for, the start of an adventure to rival the likes of Great Grandpa's. I could hardly contain my excitement as I entered those big wooden doors and made my way to Grenade's desk. An alarming number of citizens have gone missing of late, though I suspect you've already heard the rumors. I gave her a nod. Yes, ma'am, I have. It is essential that we ascertain their safety. To this end, I have prepared a list based on reports from our citizens. Would you be so kind as to deliver it to my colleague in Bulwark Hall? Indalika is her name. My thanks in advance, friend. I took the list and tucked it safely in my satchel. No need to worry, ma'am. In Bulwark Hall, there was a small group gathered around 2 identical Mikote girls. They must be sisters, I thought to myself, as I moved to the back of the group. The only way to tell them apart is that one was wearing glasses. Welcome to Limsa Lominsa. If there's aught you'd like to know, feel free to... Pardon, ma'am, but Miss Grenade asked me to give you a missing persons list. I pulled the list from my satchel and offered it for her to take. A perplexed expression crossed her face as she took the paper from me, saying a little bit too loudly, You've got something for me, you say? A missing persons list? I'm not sure I follow. She glanced at the list for but a moment before looking back to me and dropping her voice just above a whisper. Thanks for bringing the list. I'll be sure to memorize these names. If any of the missing persons reappear, you can count on me to spot them. Most folk enter the city via the Zephyr Drift, which means they must pass through Bulwark Hall. That's why I am on constant watch here and undercover so as to keep an eye out for suspicious activity. I've been doing this for so long, I've become a pretty good judge of character. If there's shady characters skulking about, you can rest assured I can pick them out. I was surprised to learn that she was actually a member of the Yellow Jackets, but I also felt pretty dazzled by it all. People in Limsa Lominsa sure led exciting lives. It sure put my life back on the farm to shame. As I was about to head toward the plaza, the other Mikote girl stopped me. Sounds like you're already in the Yellow Jackets' good graces. You truly are a model adventurer, paragon among your fellows. I blushed at her words. Was I really a model adventurer? Was this what real adventurers did? Do you think you could do me a favor? You see, I'm supposed to go and fill up all the street lamps with oil so that they'll stay lit through the night. But thanks to the business of missing people, I can't simply up and leave my post. If you could tend to the street lamps in my stead, I'd be eternally grateful. She spoke in such a rush, shoving a bottle in my hands, that I barely had time but to grab onto it. Oh, and when you're finished, please fetch more oil from Sisypoo in the Fisherman's Guild. We're running low here, and she has care of our stores. Sure thing, ma'am. No problem at all. Was this really how adventuring went nowadays? This was a lot like what I did back home in our village. Ma sent me on errands all the time and offered me up to our neighbors, too. I reached the pathway where the lights were starting to dim and began to fill the first one. Was it the same way all over yours yet? Was it even worth going to see? Great Grandpa always said to help people no matter what. I wonder what he'd say to me now. You can't cross the sea merely by staring at the water, my boy. That's what he'd say. As I filled the last of the lights, I stepped to the center of the bridge to review my handiwork. My heart swelled in my chest, and I threw my head back. I'm gonna be an adventurer, Great Grandpa. Just you wait. You're doing what? What am I to do with that girl? She has the nerve to ask me for work. Twaddling tripe about her savings, only to foist it on the first adventurer that comes along. Being young and pretty does not give you license to shirk responsibility. She'll get her oil all right, and a piece of my mind to boot. Sissapoo gave me some coin for my work. As I stowed them away and walked out, I laughed to myself at the thought of this happening to others. I reckon she's tried this before. I wondered how many others she had fooled into doing her chores. I mused over this thought as I stepped into the cool night air. I decided to take a walk around the city before turning in. As I was wandering down one of the many cobbled streets, I heard a voice call out, "Oh my, oh dear, my cask of ale is gone, and it had to be the one ordered by someone who doesn't brook tardiness." I looked around for the source of the voice. My eyes landed on a Lalafella merchant who clearly was in distress, talking to a man who was holding a large wooden crate. I decided to get a closer look and see if I couldn't help out. I would bring the matter to the maelstrom, or perhaps seek help from the Yellow Jackets, but my client would likely frown on involving anyone official. The Lalafell fretted on before turning his eyes upon me. "You! An adventurer such as yourself, though, would be capable of doing a little unofficial investigating. Would you find the stolen ale for me? It was right outside Fisherman's Bottom. Someone surely saw something." "Sure thing, sir. I'd gladly see what I can find out. What was your client's name?" The man looked shocked for a moment. "What's that? You would have the client's name?" He shook his head. "Oh, none of that. Discretion creates opportunities." He stole a quick glance around as if making sure no one was near, and then ushered me away. "Now do go to Fisherman's Bottom and make your inquiries before this cold of mine grows worse." The bloody executioners. Bloody executioners. It wasn't a very friendly name. I'm sure whoever took the cask would return it if they found out who it belonged to. As I walked along the docks, I took a moment to admire the ships. They were like the silhouettes of giants against the deep blue backdrop of the night sky. The water was black and inky, calm. I felt like it would swallow me up if I looked at it for too long. It didn't take long before I found someone on the docks. The porter stood before a pile of crates, seeming a bit preoccupied. I reckon he might know something about the casks. "Pardon me, sir, but it seems someone has taken Donazan's cask. Would you be able to tell me if you saw anything suspicious?" "Looking for Donazan's cask of ale, eh? Aye, he'll help you. Donazan ain't a bad sort for a swiving trader. There was a toper come asking after the cask. Wanted to know if it was ale, the poxy fool. Reeked of rum and puke, that one. Not no kind of working man, and you know what that means around these parts." I wasn't sure what that meant, but I thanked him for his help and continued on my way. The next person I ran into was an angler who gave me a warm smile as I approached. "Good evening, ma'am. I'm in search of a cask that seems to have grown legs. Have you seen anything suspicious round here?" "After a cask? Well, can't rightly say if it's your cask, but there was a big fella come by recently carrying one. He asked me if I had smoked mackies, what would go down nice with ale. Ain't the only thing I know neither. The louse wore black. Well, you know what that means. The bloody executioners." "Already said more I should. If it's some business with the bloody executioners, best leave it alone." This was starting to get interesting. Either the bloody executioners were behind this, or there was a fellow running around looking like he belonged to them. I went around a corner and found a fellow Lalafell. "Pardon, have you seen anyone walk off with a cask of ale?" "Did I see someone walk off with a cask of ale? Why, sure. It was during the afternoon offloading. Fella didn't look like a thief, though. Hoisted the cask and walked right on over to the Astalicia. I have to admit the whole thing looked above board, all out in the open. The fella wasn't acting like any kind of thief I've seen. Well, now that changed everything. Either this fella was a thief or he wasn't, and I reckoned the only way to find out was to go to the Astalicia myself. I hurried along the docks and toward the looming ship. I paused for a moment at the door before taking a deep breath and stepping inside. I wasn't sure who I was looking for exactly, but I decided I'd see if I could find anyone who might be able to help. On the lower deck, there was a man scrubbing the floors. After a brief exchange, he told me that I'd have better luck if I went to the upper deck. As I walked upon the upper deck, I was greeted by some folks who were having a whale of a time. I walked up slowly, unsure how to approach. These were pirates, after all. One particularly young executioner called to me.
What are you looking at? This is a dance stool. Much more important than anything you got. Much more.
He started cheering and looked to the two people he was looking at. One looked like a man of import, maybe the captain. The other was a young Mikote with fiery hair.
You may be able to scamper up the rigging to the crow's nest, but can you get down? Not for a siren's teat, you great clodhopper.
Begging pardon, Captain, but there ain't no Mikote alive heavier on her feet than a great galoot Roganin such as yourself.
Well said, Captain. Well retorted, you bloody sun-seeker. Or was you a moonkeeper? What other lands they got there? Bah, who even cares, am I right?
The young executioner looked at me with bleary eyes, and I wondered if he had to squint to keep himself from falling over.
Who are you, anyway? There was a whole passel of you afore, but now there's only one. That's a miser's trick, it is.
I shook my head. No, sir, just me here. My name's Systori Kwestori, and Before I could finish, he cut me off, stumbling and grabbing his head.
Ugh, nope, nothing worse than a miser. This horse son was a madrigal, admiral. What was his name? He didn't like no drinking nor dancing. Bad for corals. Corals? Can't be right. Corals! Ha! Course, you're right there, laddie. Should never doubt myself. Anyway, this madrigal, I'll call him Madrigal Pinchfist, passed decrees like they was farts. He decreed no dancing within a hand's reach of spirits. But no madrigal smarter than a sailor man. We just stopped reaching with our hands altogether. Ha! We initiated step dancing. That showed Madrigal Pinchfist and his corals.
Step dancing?
Aye, that's right, fella. Gets me all fired up too. Makes you think like, oh, I know, you want to dance. All this time I just thought you was being churlish, but...
No, sir, I'm not here to dance.
No, I insist. Dance first, talk later. That's the way of it.
It was obvious I wasn't getting a word in until I obliged him, and so I did. When we finished, the young executioner laughed, nodding in approval.
Why, you cagey sea fox, dancing like sailing folk, you do. Could swear there was 3 of you, or was I just... Never mind, you's practically a brother now. You ask me anything.
I finally had my chance. Dodazan is looking for a missing cask of ale. Do you know what happened to it?
A cask of Dodazan's ale? Carried it off from Fisherman's Bottom my very own self, I did. Had to, matter of fact. We'd already drunk all we had aboard. Course, Dodazan's getting paid for it. Someday. Don't make a difference if he frets a night or two. Why, you reprobate whoreson.
The captain wasn't dancing anymore.
That's the tale of the cask you logged in.
I held my breath, looking back between the captain and his swaying crew member.
Blackguard! You dare call yourself a bloody executioner, I'll hugger-bugger about what's belonged to who? Dodazan has the cards, not a mule about the colours we wear, and you play him for a fool.
I'm sorry, Captain.
Wasn't thinking it through. Got to fix that, I know. It's what they call a coral failing.
Captain waved his arms angrily at the young crew member before pausing to collect himself. With a sigh, he turned to me.
Adventurer, I beg pardon for my man. I swear Limsa mistook him for an oyster and gave him grit for brains when she made him. Since you're already here, how about you square our account with Dodazan? Take this payment to him. We'd be much obliged. You danced with us and also I'm trusting the guild won't inspire any moral feelings in you. That's some wrong keel on the Astalicia, if you take my meaning.
My eyes grew wide and I nodded quickly. Aye, Captain. Not to worry. I will take this to him right away. While the dancing had been fun, I was glad to be back on dry land. I hurried along to find Dodazan without delay. There you are, and not a moment too soon. Did you find my ale? I shook my hand and handed him the gill. He counted it out slowly before looking at me with confusion written all over his face. Huh. Well, that's the price I was to receive, but where did you get it? As I explained the situation to him, the fear ebbed from my body. By the end of my retelling, I found myself laughing.
Oh, from the bloody,
from the clients themselves. I see. Yes, there's always some blustery young fellow like that.
Hasn't earned his swallows or stars yet, I'll wager.
Aye, sir. The captain says you're the only one with the cards not to mule about the colors they wear. I smiled.
Odds, you say? Captain Mornskate is kind to say so, I'm sure, but I hail from Ulda. We trade with anyone if they've the guild to pay. Pirates, princes, they're all the same to me.
He shrugged before a wicked grin crossed his lips. And if I know these particular pirates, and I do, they'll be wanting another cask soon to drink away this little fracas. Many thanks, adventurer. Call on me any time, Mr. Dotazin. I'm much obliged. I waved as I walked off. I wasn't so sure I understood the world of mercantilism, but I was sure glad to be able to help him out. The last few days sure taught me a lot. I wonder if Great-Grandpa had any run-ins with pirates like that. Did he have to help boost their morale or make deliveries for them? I'm sure as a fisherman he encountered them out on the seas. Any road. Even though I've had some moments of doubt, I'm glad to be able to be of service to so many folks. I can't wait to start exploring more of Lenosha, and eventually more of Eorzea. I'm gonna write Ma that letter now before turning in. I think I'll skip the part about the pirates.